Saturday, Fisher Poets night number 2, and we are going to start our evening here at the Labor Temple with Greg Neitzel. Greg was born in Astoria and graduated from Seaside High School. He grew up working in the local fish processing plants and on commercial fishing boats. After studying 12 months of Japanese at the University of Oregon, he spent a year in Japan living with a Japanese family. In 1989, he was hired by Arctic Alaska Fisheries to be Far East sales manager and was stationed at Shiogama, Japan. His sales territory also included Korea and Taiwan. After retiring from the fish business, Greg taught Japanese for 3 years at Westview High School in the Beaverton School District, and during his career, Greg sold more fish eggs than any other white man in the world. But that's another story for another time. Please welcome Greg Neitzel.
You can take the first one if you want it.
How's that? Hey, good evening, Astoria. Ahoo! There we get it. We need a little light here, too. Yeah, so for the first 6 years I was stationed in Japan, Arctic Alaska Fisheries imported and sold through the Shiogama fish market 40,000 to 65,000 metric tons of bottom fish a year. To put that in perspective, 45,000 metric tons is 100 million pounds of fish. A lot of fish, a lot of money. Our fish was mostly sold at the Shiogama fish market through one of the 2 licensed wholesalers authorized to sell by public auction. The wholesaler we used was Maruichi, and the person I most closely dealt with was Takahashi-san. While studying the settlement of accounts statement, I came upon a phrase to describe an expense that I had never encountered before. The expense was sai sen beitsu. Sen beitsu means to grade, to sort. Sai means again or once more. So basically, to resort, regrade. And it was a considerable expense of $1,013,000 and only applied to our Pacific cod. I couldn't figure out what it was and decided to go to the cold storage and check it out. We had about 5,000 tons of metric tons of Pacific cod, and I was anxious to get it sold. At the cold storage, I came to where they were doing the sai sen beitsu. There were about 10 older men. One man would bring by forklift a pallet of bagged 30-pound blocks of fish and set them beside a conveyor of rollers. Then the blocks would be conveyed to a table where the bags would be opened, the blocks would be inspected, put back in the bags marked, and sent on to be taped up and placed back on a pallet. I asked what they were marking on the bags. The markings were to downgrade every bag. I couldn't believe it. We were spending money to downgrade all the fish. I went directly to the fish market and asked Takahashi-san, "Kore wa nan desu ka?" What is this? Greg-san, we need to find work for our older employees who are not so strong anymore, and this gives them something to do, he said. Takahashi-san, this is bullshit. If you want to make work for them, then take the expense out of the Maruichi commission. I refuse to pay any expenses for sai sen beitsu. And then I told Takahashi-san, let's put the peacock on the market and get it sold. The market was dry and the prospects were good to get a price. And then nothing happened. Takahashi-san, why are we not putting the fish on the auction? Greg-san, unfortunately, we do not have a new waku. What is a new waku? Well, it's an import quota. And without an import quota, we can't clear customs and sell the fish. Well, get a Yunyu Waku. Where do we get a Yunyu Waku from? Well, we can only get a Yunyu Waku through the Nihon Hainawa Gyosen Kyokai, the Japan Longline Vessels Association. And they were just about ready to offload their Pacific cod. Of course, after their fish were offloaded and sold into the market, we eventually received an import quota and not a very good price. My Japanese education was continuing. A unique characteristic of Japanese culture is the concept of tatemae and honne. Tatemae means literally built in front or facade. Japanese culture is built on social harmony, and an individual does not want to stand out in the crowd. So white lies are told or used to avoid hurt feelings and to smooth social functions. The Japanese understand this, but it can often lead to misunderstandings for Westerners with a Judeo-Christian belief in right or wrong. Honne means true sound. And it expresses one's true feelings and intentions, what is said in private. Honne is most frequently expressed when consuming large quantities of alcohol. Takahashi-san decided it was time for a honne get-together and arranged a dinner and drinking party for myself and the fish market employees at a traditional sushi restaurant in Shiogama. There were about a dozen of us, and we took up a private, very traditional tatami mat back room. We sat on the tatami mats around a long, wide table that would accommodate us all. The evening started with many large bottles of beer and very small beer glasses. The drinking custom is to pour beer for another, put the bottle down, the other person picks it up, pours for you. Kanpai. My glass never got empty. Out came platters of delicious sushi and sashimi, many small dishes of pickled vegetables. I particularly like the pickled eggplant, kimchi, and numerous small dishes of soy sauce and wasabi. Shortly after the beer bottles went around, out came the containers of warm sake and very small sake cups. More kanpai. I could sense that it was starting to become honne time. As the evening evolved into an alcoholic haze, the honne moment arrived. The room became quiet as Takahashi-san started to speak. Greg-san, we are happy that you're here and wanting to learn our language and culture. So I want to explain about a unique Japanese culture business expression. The phrase is giri ninjo. Giri ninjo. If you only get one thing out of this tonight, this is it. Giri ninjo. Giri means duty, obligation, and in samurai days, it meant to serve one's superiors with self-sacrificing devotion. Ninjo refers to human emotion, compassion, and the human feeling that springs in conflict with social obligation or giri. I took it to kind of mean, just keep your mouth shut and do what you're told. But Takahashi-san took it further. To develop and understand giri ninjo takes hundreds and thousands of years and is only understood by the Japanese. You are American, and it is impossible for you to understand and develop giri ninjo. It would be much better for you to leave Japan and return to America and leave the fish business to us. By that point, my honey was boiling over. Thank you for your explanation, Takahashi-san. And now I want to explain an American cultural business expression to you. Fuck that shit! Boom! And I slammed my fist down on the trampoline-like tabletop. Glasses tipped over. Dishes went flying. Soy sauce all over the table. The room went quiet. The shoji door opened, and the master stuck his head into the room. Daijoubu desu ka? Everything okay? Daijoubu desu, Takahashi-san replied. After that, we toned down the hone and quietly finished any alcohol left standing. I used my chopsticks to pick up and eat the pickled eggplant off the tabletop. I really like that pickled eggplant. We agreed that it had been a productive dinner, and we look forward to a continuing mutually successful business relationship. Fast forward a couple of months to Atka mackerel season in the Aleutian Islands. Our fleet of 5 factory trawlers were slaying the schooled-up Atka mackerel and efficiently heading and gutting, grading into 5 sizes, and freezing into 30-pound blocks. At the current fishing rate, we might put up 4,000 to 5,000 metric tons of fish, and the market was dry. Atka mackerel is a dark, oily, delicious fish that is prepared in a variety of ways and consumed throughout the 4 main islands. And the first 1,000 tons were due to be offloaded soon. Just as the fish were being offloaded and I was thinking about an auction schedule, I got a call from our quality control manager, Alan. Greg, we've got a problem with the Atka mackerel from the Pacific Enterprise. The factory manager said that some of the fish went bad while sitting on the deck waiting to be processed. The factory manager complained to the captain that he was overloading the system and the fish were going bad. The captain said that was not his problem and continued to overfish. The factory manager reported this to me on their first offload, and I talked to the captain and explained that this was unacceptable. On their second trip, the captain disregarded instructions and continued to overload the system. So he was fired and replaced. Just so you know. Thanks, Alan. What to do now? With the market so dry and the anticipation so high and no exact knowledge of the problem, maybe I'll just put the fish on the auction and settle any quality claims later. Bad decision. Very bad decision. I got together with Takahashi-san and we consulted the Buddhist calendar to determine our auction schedule. Butsu Meitsu, Death of the Buddha, is a very unlucky day, and we would never schedule an auction on Butsu Meitsu Day. Lyon, Great Peace, is a very lucky day, and so we decided to schedule our first auction of Atka mackerel on a Lyon day. What could go wrong? All 1,000 tons of mackerel sold out with an excellent price and blew out into the system. So far, so good. A week or so later, I got off the train at the Higashi Shiogama station on a fine morning and walked along the waterfront and into the fish market. I immediately felt a tension in the air. All the workers were wearing their company uniforms with white shirts and ties. They kept glancing at me with a sense of anticipation. In the office murmur, I heard the words, Pacific Enterprise. I was informed that there was a Hinshitsu Mondai, a quality problem, and we were to visit a local processing plant and check it out. Okay. I rode in the company van and we arrived at the processing plant. The inside of the plant was brilliantly lit up, and set up waiting for us was a local television station. Uh-oh. Spread out on the table was 3 or 4 blocks of thawed out Atka mackerel from the Pacific Enterprise, and it was rotten fish. Belly burned, ribs sticking out, and rotten stinky. In front of the camera, I put on a shocked face, and then an angry face, and then a shamed face. A very shamed face. When the ordeal ended, we decided to go to the Maruichi office and deal with the problem immediately. When we got to the parking lot, Takahashi-san stopped, looked me in the eye, and said, "Greg-san, fuck that shit." At the office, I immediately agreed to a $250,000 claim, explained that the Pacific Enterprise captain had been fired and replaced, and the problem would never happen again. We agreed it had been a productive meeting, and we looked forward to a continuing, mutually successful business relationship. Later that day, Takahashi-san and I went out for a beer and sushi dinner and lots of pickled eggplant. I really like that pickled eggplant. Owari.